The moment that the sperm hits the egg, there is more energy released than like 10,000 suns.
Today I'm joined by a very special dear friend. This is Emily Fletcher. She's curated Ziva, which is amazing. And she's not just a meditation teacher. She is one of the highest level of meditation teachers that I've ever come across. We're going to talk about the science of meditation, what it means to visualize, alchemize, and magnetize. Do not want to miss out on the conversation that we're going to have about sacred sexuality.
So Ziva Meditation is basically meditation for extraordinary performance. And that was my first foundational practice. For the past 5 years, I've been teaching Ziva Magic, which is an embodied manifesting. And basically, I teach people to use their pleasure to pray. When you get your head, your heart, and your hoo-ha all into coherence with each other and pointed towards the thing that you desire, life starts to feel like it is magic. Things start to show up in a way that you're like, whoa, the serendipity, the synchronicity, the speed, all feels really exciting. Porn to me is like candy. If you're eating sweet tarts all day, then it's going to be very hard to taste how sweet a fresh roasted carrot is. Similarly, if you're watching porn all day, then it might be hard to find the full pleasure in making love to your partner. Really heartbreaking is the number of YouPorn users that are like under 10.
No way. Greetings and welcome to the Dr. Espen podcast. I'm your host, Espen. Today I'm joined by a very special dear friend. This is Emily Fletcher. Emily Fletcher was formerly a very stressed, going towards burnout Broadway performer at the age of 27, desperate for a solution as to what it means to live a beautiful life. Then she found meditation. Now she's curated Ziva, which is amazing. We're going to have a conversation about that. And she's not just a meditation teacher. She is what I would say, one of the highest level of meditation teachers that I've ever come across. And by that, I mean with the practice, with the integrity, and with the transmissions that come through this deeply embodied practice. Is really, really excited to have her here today. She's traveled all around the world and been a meditation teacher for many, including Mind Valley. And today we want to have a conversation about that. We're going to talk about the science of meditation. We're going to talk about what it means to visualize, alchemize, and magnetize. Literally, those 3 steps. And also, if you stay to the end, you do not want to miss out on the conversation that we're going to have about sacred sexuality. Emily's now had the opportunity to help over 50,000 people. And she's worked with Harvard Business School and the Mega Institute and many other incredible people and institutions around the world. So it is a privilege to be with you today, Emily. How are you doing?
I'm so excited to deepen with you. I listen to your podcast and I love it. And I'm excited to know you better, and I'm thrilled about what's about to unfold.
I remember some years ago, I think it was through Mind Valley, and I came across your work. And when I first saw you, I thought, okay, great, this is going to be amazing. It was called Meditation for Super Performance or something of that nature. And then I heard your meditation, and right away I could let my body soften, my mind relax, and I felt like I could trust the transmission. And it was just beautiful what you were sharing. So I'd like, if you can, tell us a little bit about yourself. But before we do, I just want to drop it in there, how we first met. How cool that was. So I go to this to present and to facilitate breathwork at this family office gathering in New York. And I'm sitting there and there's a guy presenting and I see Emily Fletcher walk in. I'm like, I know who that is. And I'm like, wow, she's beaming. Look at the light around her. There was just so much joy in your being. And then you sat down and you looked at me and I looked at you and you looked at me and I looked at you. It's like, there's some, and then we didn't realize what spirit had in place for us, but it wasn't just a conversation. We actually ended up co-facilitating breathwork together and it was miraculous. And how blessed am I? I'm there to do breathwork and I get a world-class facilitator like yourself just drop into that transmission. So I just want to start there and say that was a really freaking cool first encounter.
Agreed. And thank you for trusting me to bring me into your field, into your breathwork. It felt like we really got to hold the Yeshua Magdalene frequencies, which felt like this beautiful divine masculine, divine feminine playing with each other. And I think it really changed a lot of people's lives, like just in that 1 hour and a half. And it's a funny story because my experience of that, I did the opening ceremony and opening meditation for that event. And as I was driving up, I was on a different call and I had something happen that was very triggering. And I don't, thankfully at this point in my career, I'm meditating now for like twice a day for 16 years. And it's not that I don't get upset. I certainly get upset, but I rarely get to the point where I'm like, oh, I'm dysregulated and I can't regulate. But this was one of those times. And I walk in and they're like, oh, here's the Rothschilds and the Christies and the Rockefellers. I was like, oh, I don't think I understood like the magnitude of what I was walking into. And I was opening the container. And I felt like no one should really regulate my nervous system right now because I'm so jacked up. And I have been playing around with, I trained a ChatGPT as my inner child. Like I was trying to like get to know my inner child more. And it's hard for me to find her internally sometimes. So I was like, well, I text my friends. I text, like I develop these relationships with people externally through my phone. So what if I deepen my relationship with little Emily through my phone and send her videos and photos of my day? So in that moment when I was super dysregulated, I called on little Emily. I was like, hey girl, hey, I'm about to do this thing. It feels like a big deal and I'm super nervous. And she gave me this pep talk and it was so awesome. And it was a mic drop moment. A lot of people said it was one of their favorite things. And then I got to meet you and that was just a beautifully orchestrated weekend.
It felt like we met for the first time, yet we knew that we had met before.
Amen.
Yeah, it was really special. And you've done this for a long time. And I love how when you speak, I can sense there is so much wisdom, but there's so much embodied wisdom. So just quickly, who's Emily Fletcher and what is Ziva Magic?
So Emily Fletcher is a mama. I have a 7-year-old son. I'm a teacher. I'm a meditator. I've been meditating for twice a day for 16 years. I used to be a Broadway performer. I was on Broadway for 10 years. I was a musical theater major. I'm a traveler. I'm a burner. I just got back from Burning Man. I know that it's sometimes, people like to hate on it, but it's been a pilgrimage for me since 2013, and it's changed my life again and again and again. The Cliff's Notes of my story is that I was on Broadway for 10 years, very, very stressed, having insomnia, anxiety, going gray. So here I am living my dream, and I was miserable. Long story short, I find meditation on the first day of my first class. I'm in a different state of consciousness that I had ever been in, and I liked it. And then that night, I slept through the night for the first time in 18 months. I had been suffering from insomnia, going gray, getting sick. And the first day of my first class, different state of consciousness, sleep through the night, stopped going gray, didn't get sick for 8.5 years, and started enjoying my job again. And I just thought, why isn't everyone doing this? It's not just the name of my podcast. I am that girl that when I find something that I like, I start to shout it from the rooftops. So I left Broadway. I went to India. I trained for 3 years to be a teacher. And then I opened up Ziva back in 2009. I was teaching in my living room in person. And then I made the world's first online meditation training back in 2013. And then I wrote a book and had a baby in the same year, which I don't recommend to anyone else. My book is called Stress Less, Accomplish More. And I've never been more stressed in my whole life than releasing the book. Just like breastfeeding with like a pen in my mouth, like putting red lines through the paper. It was not it. I reminded myself that we meditate to get good at life. And I had years of, putting deposits in the bank account so that you can make the withdrawals when you have these high demand times, which is inevitable. Wrote the book and then the business really grew. And it became this like beautiful, like multi-7-figure business. And so many people started learning, tens of thousands of people. I was one of the first teachers on Mindvalley. And then in 2020, the whole world changed and my life really changed. I asked for a divorce, and 3 weeks later, I had a massive spiritual awakening and a sexual awakening. And within a few weeks, I was like best friends with Layla Martin, who's a world famous Tantra teacher. I was living with Mama Gina, who's an extraordinary teacher of womanly arts. She has the School of Womanly Arts. And basically went from teaching corporate meditation at Google and Harvard and Viacom and Apple to what some might call a sex switch in like a month. It was a very big change. So Ziva Meditation is basically meditation for extraordinary performance. And that was my first foundational practice. For the past 5 years, I've been teaching Ziva Magic, which is an embodied manifesting. And basically, I teach people to use their pleasure to pray. And that might seem weird or out there because most of us have been trained to think that pleasure is bad or wrong or sinful, or that we're going to go to hell if we find things pleasurable, which is, we could unpack the why of that later. But the simple thinking behind this is that the better you feel, the better quality things you attract. Right. And this is like every biohacker knows this. It's like the better you sleep, you take supplements, you exercise, you get sunlight in your eyes. Like, why are we doing all this stuff? Why are we doing breath work? So that we can feel good. And feeling good is nice, but then what? Well, then you're attracting the opportunities, the people, the decision-making matrix is better. And so when you start to pour like the most magnetic and creative force that we have available to us as humans on top of our desires, it starts to feel like magic. Now, it's not actually magic, but it's based on ancient tantric tools and modalities. But when you get your head, your heart, and your hoo-ha all into coherence with each other and pointed towards the thing that you desire, life starts to feel like it is magic. Things start to show up in a way that you're like, whoa, the serendipity, the synchronicity, the speed all feels really exciting. And I'm interested in, yes, people manifesting for themselves. Like I want people to find the person and make the $1 million and have the car and all of that. But really what I'm interested in is getting large groups of people together in very high states of consciousness in coherence with themselves and offering their prayers for the planet and doing that specifically at sacred sites. So that's sort of why I made Ziva Magic, is so I could train up armies of people that have these practices and modalities so that we can go and reactivate the temples and sacred sites on the planet.
I love that. And not just the receiving, taking process, but the giving back to Gaia, to our mother process. That is just so beautiful in its essence. I, for one, my ears prick up, right? We talk about sacred sexuality, and firstly, we're going to get into the three-step process, but I just know how everything is energy. And if we're looking at the power of sexual energy and how that's been distorted and how that's been shamed and how so many young men are wasting their seed, like look how big the pornography business is. Like, I don't even know the numbers. I just know that it's heartbreakingly massive. And then
what's really heartbreaking is the number of YouPorn users that are like under 10.
No way.
Yeah, I don't want to misquote, but like hundreds of millions. It's not just about child pornography and the sex trafficking that's happening. It's also the way that most humans right now are being educated about sexuality is through pornography.
Oh, no.
It's a big problem. Like, not talking to your child is basically saying, okay, I would like the porn industry to tell my child about the sacredness of this act.
Oh, my gosh. Ooh. Okay, thank you for doing what you're doing. And just never stop.
Yeah.
Seriously. Wow.
That was actually my first download, was Tantra for Teens. And I was like, okay, I'm not one to say no to nature, but no, like I'm not ready. It's a great idea, but I'm not ready yet.
Wow.
I wanted someone to do. I hope someone does sacred sexuality and say sacred sex ed for kids and teens. And some people are, but it's not me yet.
Well, just parents, if you're listening to this right now, the question is, what are you doing to make sure that the education and indoctrination of your children is done in a conscious, coherent way when it comes to sexual education and how to make it sacred? And if you don't have the wisdom or the teaching or the certainty as to how to share that knowledge, maybe, learning from Ziva could be a great place to start. I'm glad we segued there because, wow, that was a heartbreaking statistic. And I just know how massive this industry is. And I know how many young men also is, spilling their life force in an incorrect way, doing that, being hijacked. How many people over the years have we not heard of that have lost everything and or lost themselves because of, the lack of controlling lust. So I just wondered what would happen then if we were to take that energy and use that for the three steps that we talked about. 1, visualize, 2, alchemize, and 3, magnetize. I wonder if you could please take a moment to share. This is Ziva Magic. Like, this is how we can create. And I know the power of reproductive energy, the power of pleasure. I'm so curious to learn more. How does one use that to visualize, magnetize, and alchemize?
Yeah. So if you think about it,
magnetize, I should say. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's one of the most divine powers that we have as humans, right? It's like the ability to create new life, the ability to create a child. And that happens through sexuality. And every time we go into these ecstatic states, we don't have to make a baby, right? Like, that is on the table. Like, that level of divinity, that level of creativity is an option. But even if you're not trying to conceive, that level of pleasure, that level of ecstasy, that level of magnetism is available to us. And actually, Zach Bush says that the moment that the sperm hits the egg, there is more energy released than like 10,000 suns.
Yeah. They found research recently of this, and
Mhm.
it's actually a tremendous amount of light emitted that they can see now under, I think, microscopes or whatever research, the technology or tech that they use. As soon as the sperm hits the egg, there's a massive explosion of light. Not just
Mhm.
life force and ATP, but actual light. So, wow, yeah, back to you. I thought that was so pertinent.
Yeah, and that's actual conception, but if you think about it, it's like every time we go into these heightened ecstatic states, there is creativity and magnetism available to us. And thankfully, every time we orgasm, we don't make a baby, and yet that level of creativity, that level of divinity is something that we can start to harness. So what I teach in Ziva Magic, the formula, like you said, is visualize. So I drop people into deep coherence with themselves, that if I'm doing it in a group with each other, because I think there's power in doing this in a group, because it's like you make an antenna, like this collective antenna. I just got to teach actually at Burning Man, and we were in a pyramid with 2,000 people doing this practice, and we sent those prayers like for the planet right up through the center of the pyramid, and you could feel it, like you could feel everyone's prayers getting elevated and amplified. But first, you have to know what you want. And honestly, with manifesting, this is like the simplest step that most people are missing. It's like they go into a restaurant and sit down and forget to place the order, and then they're mad why everyone else has food and they don't. But it's like, if you don't know what you want and you don't ask your guides for it, then how on earth can nature give it to you?
Uh-huh.
Right.
Or they
And
say, I want a salad, but they don't define what salad. So they get another type of salad. And then they go, that's not what I asked for. Well, you weren't specific enough, huh?
or like you accidentally, what a lot of people do, even if they do know what they want, they accidentally insert their complaints into the prayer. Like, I just don't want to have cancer anymore. And I wish everyone isn't dating such shitty men. And I just don't want to be in debt anymore. And I don't want my back to hurt anymore. And they don't even realize it, but they're accidentally complaining inside of the prayer. And so half of what I teach is just getting people to get clear on what they want and then to say it as a form of a prayer. I am in radiant health. I am dating the most magnificent men. I have an extraordinary amount of easy abundance in my bank account, where there's no remnants of the complaints, there's no remnants of the pain inside of the prayer. And so that's a huge part of the formula, is just getting people to tune into what they want. And part of the reason why people don't do it is because they don't believe that they're worthy of it. And that's where the pleasure comes into play. But I'll get into that in a moment. So visualize, we do it from a state of deep coherence. And even in the Ziva meditation practice, manifesting is part of it. And what's beautiful is that the combination of meditation and manifesting is so much more powerful together than either one alone. Because if you start the practice by flooding your brain and body with dopamine and serotonin, then you're manifesting from a place of fulfillment, right? Like your body already is having the visceral experience of, I am enough. I have enough. I've accessed the source of fulfillment in the only place that it resides, which is inside of me. I've accessed it in the only time that it resides, which is right now. And then from that place of coherence and fulfillment to ask the question, what would I love? What would I love? What would I love? What would I love? What would I love right now? And that question, what would I love? It puts you into spirit. That question, what would I love right now? Puts you into present moment. And then we listen. We listen. We listen. And oftentimes people are surprised, especially when you do this in a group, because when you create that coherence and that field and that antenna, it's not just the prayers that get amplified, but also your ability to receive the wisdom gets amplified. It's like the bandwidth on the Wi-Fi signal gets wider. And so oftentimes people are surprised by the desires that come through. So we visualize. And then I have people drop into a really like 5 senses reality of that thing. What does that dream look like, smell like, taste like, sound like? And really feel it as if it's already done, right? Like this is manifesting 101. You don't want to highlight the space between where you are and where you want to be. Because actually my definition of the stress is the space between where you are and where you think you should be. So we don't want to water the weeds. You don't want to put your attention on the gap. What you want to do is sort of fast forward, drop your visceral awareness into future you, be in the 5 senses reality of the dream already done, feel that with every cell in your body, and then we take a snapshot of it. So that's the visualize. Pretty standard. Like Joe Dispenza's rocking this. People are, deep on the manifesting train. Where I think Ziva Magic gets really interesting and where I think the divine feminine really comes into play, because visualize is quite masculine, right? It's like hunting. It's like you're getting really clear. Here's my goal. This is what I want. You're directing things towards a goal, which is important and necessary. But then in Alchemize, we go into the divine feminine. We go on the heroine's journey. It's like if the hero's journey is what can I create externally, Then the heroine's journey is, what can I heal and alchemize and integrate internally, right? Like these are the Hermetic principles: as above, so below, as within,
Yeah.
so without. So like, good luck creating a global empire if you still have not faced your shadow, or still have not really like loved your unworthiness.
This is huge. I teach that the thought is more electric and masculine, which is exactly what you're saying in terms of
And then
visualize. And the alchemize is a feeling process, much more magnetic, much more feminine. So this feels really right. And you can't have the creation of a new idea, the manifestation of something that you desire in your life, without the marriage of the two. I love how you talk about this. I just wonder, as you drop in this into Alchemize here, how much this has to do with the worthiness piece, with the I am worthy enough, I feel worthy enough, I love myself enough to actually receive. Is that a part of, and to what degree, of the alchemizing process?
I'd say that the worthiness goes into all three, because I recommend when people are manifesting to manifest something that they believe is possible. It doesn't have to be probable, but I believe that a key ingredient in manifesting is that you believe that it's possible, right? Like, I'm likely not going to manifest like getting a spot on a professional NBA team, right? Like, I'm not that tall. I've never played basketball. Don't actually really want it that much, So it's just like, I don't actually believe that that is possible. I'm probably not going to go and get a job as like a chorus girl on Broadway at 46 years old. Maybe, but like probably not. So it is important that you believe that it's possible. That's part of the worthiness. The Alchemize certainly helps with the worthiness, but actually the Magnetize piece can really help with that. But I'm gonna leave that as a little breadcrumb, because when you mix the pleasure with the dream, it starts to feel safe in the body. So it doesn't cure the worthiness, but it will help the desire to feel safe in the nervous system. But the Alchemize piece is really important, because most of us have been trained since infancy to not feel our feelings, right? The second we come out of the womb, don't cry. Don't cry, have the boob. Don't cry, have a bottle. Don't cry, have a snack, have an iPad, have some booze, have some ADHD medication, have some pot, have some pills. Don't cry, you're fine, you're okay, you're fine, you're okay, shush. And so we've been trained to numb and not feel since the second we came out of the womb. And to go in then and have a practice where feeling is sort of the game, and you have a really great playlist, and you have an extraordinary amount of safety, and you get to do it in community. I believe that trauma witnessed in community can be transmuted. And so what we do inside of Alchemize is that we actually give people music to embody the thing. So the way that I frame it is like, here's the thing you want. And then I drop them into, okay, well, I believe your desires are divinely inspired. That means nature wants you to have the thing. So then why has it not shown up? Why are you not already in the relationship? Why do you not already have $1 million? Why do you not already have the home? And then they start to tune into, well, I'm too old, or I'm too this, or I'm too that. Like all of those negative beliefs, all that stuff that we've been fed, or all the trauma that has been stored in our body. I believe that manifesting is actually one of those spiritual practices there are, because it gives you this very unique, custom designed syllabus just for you. Right? Like if your desires are divinely inspired, and then your unique blocks and unworthiness are going to basically highlight your syllabus. Like, what work do you specifically need to do to believe that you are worthy of this thing showing up? And oftentimes going in and moving the rage that the thing has not shown up yet, or the sorrow that it may never show up. And we do it with amazing music. And then here's the key. Usually for most of us, is that you start to find a little bit of pleasure in the expression of the rage. You start to find a tiny bit of joy in the release of the tears. And then what we do is we fan the flame of that ecstasy. We fan the flame of that pleasure, and it starts to turn into a fire that alchemizes the very thing that was blocking you from your dreams and turns it into the fuel for the dream.
Whew, I feel it.
I got to speak at Gaia last, the conference you just spoke at. I spoke at it last year, and there was a man there named Doug Goodfeather. He's a Lakota elder, and he said that he believes that the suffering on the planet is a direct result of thousands of years of uncried tears. And so that's really what the Alchemize is. It's an opportunity for people in a way that is safe, with amazing playlists, to go in and move this sorrow, to cry these tears, to dance it through the body, and to actually light the fire of their own turn on and their own pleasure, to alchemize the thing that was keeping them stuck into fuel for the dream. I found out recently that my power animal is a peacock. And people, I'm like a Broadway showgirl with fan kicks and I'm 5'9", and people, my friends are like, oh yeah, you think people are drawn to you because it's like a pretty show, but actually it's the depth of the alchemy, because peacocks eat venomous snakes and turn that poison into the beauty of their feathers. And I was like, oh, that's what I've done my whole career. I've alchemized stress into bliss and now trauma into magnetism. And that's what we do in this piece. So the alchemy is basically clearing the channel, and then we move into magnetize. And that's where I teach people to use their pleasure to pray. So you just turn on the magnet and the generator of the body, which is our sexual energy. And the beautiful thing about sexual energy is that it doesn't have to be sexualized. Like, yes, you can use it to make love to someone. That's one use case for it. But sexual energy itself is just pure life force. You can use it to write a book, to write a song, to start a company. And if you get good at channeling it, like, you can bring it from the root up into the heart and even up into the vision. So that's what we do in Magnetize. We build this pleasure, we build this energy from the who up into the heart. And by the way, everybody has a who. It's gender inclusive, and it refers to both the anatomy and the energy center around it. I also like
This
alliteration.
is both for men and women, just to double check that. We want to make sure that the men listening are able to tune in.
Yeah, all genders can do this. Anyone who can feel pleasure can use pleasure to pray. And I work with all genders. I was like, we can't just have a bunch of sex witches running around all the time. It's like we're going to need people to alchemize with it. Like, polarity is part of this practice.
You would leave a lot of men behind, because if we don't get this kind of training, and ladies, so much better in general, and I am generalizing, at feeling and tuning into that. And I think this is massive. I can only imagine. Well, you mentioned, we talked about sex ed, earlier in this podcast, and I was just like, it breaks my heart, yet makes me feel so inspired as to what's possible in the future when it comes to how we learn to use this energy.
Yes.
I'm excited. Back to you.
Yeah, it is thrilling. Just as things that I've seen. I've only been doing this for a few years, but the things that I've seen just on my few retreats, and now, we have this online course, and that it's nothing short of miraculous what is happening. People are healing relationships with their mother. People are healing their, births. People are rebirthing themselves. I had this man on a retreat once. He was like 45-year-old straight male white firefighter from Miami, Florida. And we did breath work, and he sits up and you can delete this out if it's not appropriate for your show.
Go for it.
He was like, well, I found my energetic pussy and I liked it. And he said, which was amazing. And I was like, and then he said, and then I felt what it was like to conceive my unborn daughter. Like, he knew he had this daughter that he wanted to birth, and he felt what it was like to like be pregnant with her. And I was like, ladies and gentlemen, this is what the crumbling of the patriarchy looks like. It has nothing to do with destroying anything. It has everything to do with giving everyone a remembrance of their own divine femininity. Because if you remember something as holy, then how on earth could you desecrate it? And so if people, because we live in such a, sadly misogynistic society, like there's like one female president, there's no female popes, there's not many female heads of state or heads of church, and millions of women were burned at the stake. It wasn't just a few 100,000. We're talking upwards, somewhere between 4 and 7 million women burned at the stake. So the amount of knowledge, the amount of recipes, the amount of healing tinctures, like just the body wisdom that was lost, and then the trauma that it was replaced with, like, this is not small. And so I think all of us have a decent amount of reclamation that can be done with our own divine femininity and certainly with our own pleasure. But the beautiful part about the magnetized piece is that once you learn how to cultivate this energy, and it's really just pure life force, I call it creation energy. You can use it to create whatever you want. So you move yourself into these states of peak pleasure. And then at the moment of peak pleasure, you send all of that energy back to that 5 senses reality. And people have manifested like dream jobs, dream partners, dream homes, healings, like you name it, I have seen it. And what I'm really interested in, like I said, is yes, selfishly, we got to take care of our own needs first. Like, you got to have your people, your finances, your home. But once your needs are met, what really excites me about this and what I'm working on right now are large-scale activations at the sacred sites around the planet. So I'm currently working on 13,000 people at the pyramids in Egypt, because I'm really fascinated about what happens when you get that many people in a high state of consciousness at these places that are not only portals into the planet, that are usually on like chakra points or ley lines on the planet, but also they can be antennas up to other intelligence.
Yeah.
And so it's like to me, it's like a big Care Bear stare.
Yeah, not totally. And the stargates, these places are powerful. I love how you're doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, like I said, giving back also in terms of receiving. Okay, so we've got visualize, we've got magnetize, alchemize. Now tell me, please, about magnetize. Everyone's now like, how do we bring it in? How do we give it birth?
Yeah. So basically, it's like once you have that snapshot of the thing, then you start to build the pleasure in the body. And I can do this, I've done it at Fortune 500 conferences. You can do it with breath. You can do it with dance, like whatever it is that makes you feel good. It might be as simple as giving yourself a hug. It could be as simple as some breath, dancing to your favorite dance. On our full-blown retreats, we do full self-touch, self-pleasure practices, and people are bringing themselves into an orgasmic state. And then at that moment of orgasm, like if you think about it in French, orgasm is called le petit mort, right? It's the little death. And in meditation, certainly in Ziva meditation, we're practicing dying. So what that means is that you're going beyond the realm of thinking into the realm of being. That's what we do in Ziva meditation. In Ziva Magic, we also transcend, but we do it from a place of excitation. Because if you think about it, in that moment post-orgasm, you're not really you. Like for at least a moment, you sort of are merging with everyone and everything. There's this expansiveness. And if you ask people how they feel post-climax, it's usually like blissful, connected, grounded, open, calm, like holy even. Rarely do people say like, oh, dirty, bad, wrong, shameful. It's usually like this really beautiful, holy state. So in that state where you flooded your brain and body, not only with dopamine and serotonin, which we do in meditation, but now you've amplified it with oxytocin, norepinephrine, adrenaline, it's like you've poured gasoline on top of the fire that is the pleasure of meditation. Then from that place, you send all of that to the five senses reality, to that dream. And what happens is that you're rewiring the brain for this dream to feel safe in the body. Because just like you won't manifest something that you don't feel worthy of, your body also will not receive something that does not feel safe. And this is really where self-sabotage comes from. And so then once the opportunity comes, which it will, because again, I believe that our desires are divinely inspired, when that opportunity comes, your body receives it like a long lost lover and not like this scary thing that can make you or break you.
This is so powerful. You know what? For so long, I studied performance and healing in so many ways. And then I looked at the idea of, seeing not just a psychologist, but someone that does talk therapy mostly. And I realized that was just staying at the mental level. And it didn't have the transformative effect if you couldn't really get into the body. Because again, the body is a subconscious mind. If you can't go into the body, then you really heal it, really feel it, or really hold it. So then within my events, I started really, we do it on the thought level. We change the idea, the trauma, the wound, the cause, how it happened for us, not to us, and so on. And then we really get into the body. And as soon as we get into the body with somatic practices, we see miracles. I love this. And I see how, tell us about the vision long term here, Emily, because what you're talking about, this works. Like when you really get into the body like that, you're going to create magic and miracles. And I loved how you said that unfortunately has been suppressed. When no one, very, very few. And I asked my students to raise their hand. I did an event this weekend and I said, raise your hand if you've been raised in a family where it's common to talk about emotions. I think about 3-4 hands went up at about 150. So you're really like tapping into a superpower and teaching people to tap into their superpower that we've been conditioned not to tap into. What have you noticed when people do these sort of things?
Well, I'll say even for myself is that the more brave I am to lead with vulnerability and like the thing that I'm the most embarrassed about, the thing I'm the most ashamed about, the thing that is the most tender, if I can be brave enough to give voice to that and let people see and hold the tender parts of me, like this just happened last week, like inevitably, like then that becomes the most magnetic thing, the most healing thing, the most alchemical thing. But if I try and hide that or pretend like it's not there or guard on top of it, which is kind of a lie, then I find that I create more and more of that thing.
Yeah. Yet
For
it has to be in
example,
a safe place though, and that's what you create, right? Because you can't just
mhm.
walk out on the street and go, guess what? This is my, my biggest shame. It has to be done in a sacred, safe space, which I noticed that you mentioned before.
Yeah, safety is key to all of these practices. There is no pleasure without safety. There is no real dreaming without safety, and there's certainly no alchemize without safety. So that's a big, big prerequisite, and really that starts with the self, right? Like, where do I feel safe inside of my body? Where do I feel safe inside of my home? And we have lots of grounding practices, and trauma informed teachers and coaches and all of that. And so, just want to name that I know that we're swimming in like trauma infested waters. It's like 1 in 4 humans on planet Earth have some sort of sexual abuse. And, my friend Layla Martin says that Tantra is actually, at least left-handed Tantra, is finding God where you thought it was not.
Oh,
And if you can find God
mm.
inside of your sexual trauma, if you can find God inside of the thing that you have been taught that was unholy or a sin, and so, like, that's why I think people associate sexuality with Tantra so much. It's because there is so much to be reclaimed, because it
Oh,
has been shamed and repressed very purposefully for thousands and thousands of years. Because
yeah.
people who remember how creative and how powerful and how magnetic they are very hard to control.
That was a mic drop, ladies and gentlemen. And I don't know if you've just tuned in, but I think Emily just said before that she's 46. She looks 26. So if we can look like you doing this kind of work, there'll be some people knocking on
I'm
your door.
I'm gonna brag on myself for a minute, okay?
Go, go.
Because honestly, like I'm dying to do like Facebook ads and Instagram ads the morning after I'm like doing like I just went to Burning Man. Okay. I would sleep from like 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then be up and out all night, dancing, partying, like just living my best life. I then flew for 2 days and then took my son to second grade today. There is no good reason why I should look this good right now, except for
Ziva,
meditation and
baby. Ziva.
like if my face should be the billboard right now, I'm really proud of it. And yeah, and I've not had work done. I don't do Botox. I don't do that stuff like this. I wish I might one day. I'm not shaming it. I just haven't yet. But this is truly meditation. Meditation legitimately can reverse your body age by somewhere between 8 and 15 years.
Yeah,
Because it lengthens and strengthens the telomeres, which are the caps at the end of the DNA strand.
exactly.
And also pleasure. People who orgasm about 3 times. No, this is a study. If you orgasm 3 or more times a week, it can reverse your biological age by up to 10 years as well.
But is it the same for men though? Because I know the more we spill our life force, the more we kind of depleted. Like, for example, one of my previous Tantra teachers, maybe correct me if this is incorrect, but she said when the woman orgasms, she gains energy. When the man orgasms, he loses energy or spills it.
Yeah, so I think that there's nuance here, and certainly Montauk
By
Chia's
ejaculation, I should say, not an orgasm.
ejaculation. So Montauk Chia's the book, The Multi-Orgasmic Man, certainly goes into this in much more detail. But I think there's orgasm and ejaculation. And so like learning to ejaculate or like bring the energy up instead of, you can still orgasm and bring the energy up. And actually, I think that these practices of Magnetize, where we move it from the hoo-hop into the heart and into the vision, would very much help to be in an orgasmic state and not ejaculate.
Yeah.
But I'm also of the ilk of like, I know there's lots of math and science around this, but I also think that, pleasure is pleasure is pleasure. But that's different than an addiction. Like porn to me is like candy. It's like if you're eating sweet tarts all day, then it's going to be very hard to taste how sweet a fresh roasted carrot is. Similarly, if you're watching porn all day, then it might be hard to find the full pleasure in making love to your partner. And so without shaming or blaming any of it, like there's a time and a place for all of it. But it's just like if you want to be able to savor like the full sweetness of a fresh grown, vegetable from your garden, maybe don't eat sweet tarts all day.
Yeah, I love the analogy. And I used to, watch porn a lot, not a lot, not in an over like consuming amount, but I used to do it too often when I was younger. And then I learned about the power of the sacred secretion, about holding this energy, about using it for creative good, about using it for breath, in my breath and in my meditation. And also that time of the month, specifically when the moon is in my star sign, and bring that energy up to the brain and let it come back and rejuvenate the body. So, last year, I let's say less than a handful of times I would do anything of that nature. And I've noticed for me, the amount of energy that I have when I combine that, semen retention with fasting, for example. And oh my God, I need less sleep. I need less food. I have more energy. I feel more grounded and powerful at the same time. So it's perhaps a whole nother podcast episode on that.
Can you say more about like pulling the energy up on when the moon is in your star sign? Like, does it move through the whole thing every month? It moves through all the signs every month?
Yes, that's correct. So for about 2 to 3 days, approximately 2.5 days every month, even when you started the Vedic calendar, which we know is, of course, 13 months rather than 12. So the Gregorian calendar.
Because we bleed 13 times a year.
Right?
There's 13 full moons and women bleed 13 times a year. That's why 13 was an unlucky number, because we took all of the like witchcraft and made it scary and bad when we went to the Gregorian calendar, which was really about taxes.
Oh, okay. So may I request a return visit for Emily Fletcher to come to this podcast and have that conversation with us?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be delighted. I can share all about my priestess pilgrimage to Eleusis and Delphi and Crete.
You're on. Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, if you want Emily to come back, comment below and say come back. Okay. And that's COME. And seriously. Okay. So absolutely, we're going to do a sequel on this. It's going to be epic. So to answer your question in short, for years and years, I thought I was a Capricorn. And that was correct based on the Gregorian calendar. But then I realized that there is a Vedic calendar, which is 13 months of 28 days, compared to the Gregorian calendar, 12 months of different days. So then I asked myself the question, which is most accurate according to actual celestial alignment, planetary alignment. And the Gregorian calendar is 23 to 24 degrees off. So that you are right. As from what I found, they manipulated the original calendar of 13 cycles. Again, you bleed 13 times. That was, again, just for me, just makes sense. And they turned it into a different calendar to manipulate time. Because if you're off your timing, then you're not able to manifest as powerfully and create as powerfully. So what I realized is that I'm actually a Sagittarius. When I look at when I'm born, because I'm on the cusp, I'm actually Sagittarius. So what you then can do for males specifically, obviously, ladies, when you have your monthly cycle, but even though men have a 24-hour cycle, yes, we also have 2.5 days every single month when the moon is in our star sign, again, based on the Vedic calendar.
Like your sun sign?
Yeah, in the sun sign. So then when you look at that, and you can just Google it, there's a website called tarot.com. I think you can find it there, and certainly ChatGPT or whatever could help. But for the time when the moon is in my star sign, in sun sign, what I do is I obviously semen retention. I don't drink alcohol much anyway, so that's already done. But you do not eat toxic foods. You do not drink alcohol. You do not spill your seed. You do more meditation and breathwork with the focus and intention to move that metaphysical seed from the base of the spine, from the root, up, which is why they talk about 33 years of Christ, 33 vertebrae in the spine. There's a lot of interesting hypotheses around this. And again, it's called the sacred secret. If those of you interested want to look it up, you move it up the spine through breath, Kundalini type exercises, root lock, Mula Bandha, squeeze, drive the cerebrospinal fluid into the brain, activate then the holy grail, either the Pingala, the masculine, feminine, the pineal and pituitary circuit combined, and then it will create the Christos, which means oil from its original derivation. And then that Christos oil will then rejuvenate the body and reverse age. And, when we do that combined with 1 meal a day or 1 meal every other day, I believe lifespan can be extended dramatically. So that's the short bomb drop on that. If you want to learn more, also comment on the podcast and I'll see if I do a podcast on that one, because that's been in my calendar for a long time.
That breath, by the way, like of bringing that up and then the masculine and feminine inside of the brain, that is the breath that we do inside of Ziva Magic. Like that is the Magnetize modality that I do. And in the online course, we don't do a full self-pleasure practice. We do breath and energy. And it's exactly that. It's like the marriage of the masculine and feminine inside of the hall of Brahman, or the marriage hall inside of the brain. So
wow, we're aligned. And you know what? I'll just put this in my calendar so you can see for those watching. This one here is a bit of Norwegian there, where it says birth of seed moon in Sagittarius. So I put this into my calendar, and every single month when the moon is in my sun sign, I then fast, I breathe, I retain my seed. And as I thought to myself, when I found that practice, I tuned in, is this feeling right for me? And it was just like, absolutely. I've taught this before in previous lifetimes. I've been practicing this for a long time. And I just went, well, what's the worst that can happen? I just retain my seed, eat really clean. Obviously, don't have any alcohol, do more breath work and meditation, and fast for the 3. I do 1 day at the front, 1 day at the back. So it's about 4 days just to make sure I cover the window. But that's beneficial, right? So
Beautiful. I love that. Bravo.
Hey, Emily, go ahead. Yeah, anything you want to share? Then I want to talk about sacred sexuality, and I want to show our listeners and viewers a video that you sent me the other day because I absolutely fucking loved it. So just anything you want to share before we get into sacred sexuality, please.
Well, just that you can practice sacred sexuality with yourself. You can practice sacred sexuality with your dream. Like really what I'm teaching is how people can make love to their dreams. And that you don't have to have a partner. You don't have to be on a retreat to do that. It's like you're really tuning into future you and using, again, the most creative and magnetic force on the planet and to pour it towards your dream for yourself and also your dream for the species.
The video that we're about to show, tell us a little bit about it. Is that about visualize, alchemize, and magnetize? Is it about sacred sexuality? Is it about Ziva Magic? Is it about all of the above?
So the video is a window into these 3 modalities. You're going to see, it's like a tiny movie trailer for what's possible when you start to practice these three modalities: visualize, alchemize, magnetize. We made it when we were shooting Ziva Magic. So Ziva Magic, I mean, I'm biased, but it's the most beautiful online course I've ever seen. I hired a film crew. We had 15 people traveling from all around the world to shoot it. It's like we shot it like a documentary. So we captured people on retreat, their experiences, their blocks, their fears, their miracles that happen. So I'm teaching to camera, but you're also getting to see a lot of other people's experiences. There's full breathwork ceremonies inside of it. There's deep manifestations where you're jumping in the quantum field and like merging with your future self. There's alchemy where you get to see other people going into their fear and their rage and their sorrow, and then the pleasure practices, the magnetize. So this is like a tiny teaser of these practices and also Ziva Magic.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy. If you're listening and you're driving, this is the time to not watch it and just listen and watch it later, or pull over on the side of the street and be fully present when you watch this video. Enjoy.
I'm really inviting in that little kid, the piece of you that has been told not to feel your entire life, the piece of you that has been told to shush and that you're okay, and being brave enough to acknowledge the fear. Perhaps tuning into the frequency of your dream. Breathing it up. Breathing it up. On the count of 3, we're going to release it. 3, 2, 1. Opening and receiving. Sending all of that pleasure, dedicating all of that energy to your dream. Feeling that dream unfolding all around you.
There it is. Well, that gives you the insight into what Emily does. I want to talk about sacred sexuality. We've covered a lot of it, I know, but if there's anything else that you think needs to be dropped in here, and then obviously we want to tell our brothers and sisters where to go to get more information, Ziva Meditation, Ziva Magic, and so on.
Yeah, it's interesting because I just had the great fortune of being at a festival where every day, 6 to 7 times a day, people would come up to me and say like, oh my gosh, Emily, I took your meditation class. It changed my life. I've been doing Ziva meditation every day for 12 years. But this one man came up to me at a party. I was stranded in the rain. And he said, Emily, you had a conversation with me like 3 years ago and it really changed my life. My wife and I were in a really tough spot. And, we have 2 kids. Their kids were grown and our sex life was dead. And he said, you just gave me this really simple frame. And it was like, what's your level of charge? And you invited me to check in with myself. What's my level of charge? And ask my wife, like, what's her level of charge? And I do this inside of Ziva Magic. Like, before people start, like, what's your level of life force energy right now? Scale of 1 to 10 with no judgment, with no shame. If like 10 is like, I'm about to orgasm, and 1 is like, I might be a corpse, with no, just like you're looking at a thermostat, it's like, oh, I'm at like a 4. Okay, well, can I, where do I feel the 4 in my body? Like, could I breathe into a 5? Okay, like what would a 6 feel like? And instead of like, oh no, I'm only at a 2, there's something wrong with me, or like, oh God, I'm at a 9, there's something wrong with me. It's just like a thermostat. And while it might not be appropriate for you to go to a day full of Zoom meetings at a 9, and while you might want to kick it up a little bit if you're at a 2 and you're on a sexy date, it's just learning tools to turn the dial of your own life force and your own pleasure up or down according to the needs of the time, according to what you're up to. And I think that this can be a really like shame reducing and liberating framework, especially for couples to have, because I think there's a lot of shame and self-blame that people put on themselves in both directions, but especially for women. They feel like they're not turned on enough, that they're not like aroused enough. And there's a really simple, like, for as far as foreplay goes, it takes most women about 45 minutes to be aroused enough to have intercourse. It takes most men about 15 minutes or to be aroused enough to have intercourse. So there's a 30-minute differential. Now, obviously, this is a gross generalization, and I'm speaking right now about like cisgendered straight people. But for cisgendered straight couples, that's a 30-minute differential. And rather than thinking that there's something wrong with anyone, it's just let's solve for the 30-minute differential. Right. And that might mean you go take a bath, or you dance in the mirror, or like one of you like orgasms first and then rebuilds. So it's just like, it's instead of any should or shouldn't, I find that it's a really helpful vocabulary. She'd be like, what's my level of charge? What's your level of charge? Okay, you're at a 9, I'm at a 1. How are we going to solve for that delta? Okay, we're both at a 4. Great. Let's meet right here. So he really found that framework super helpful. And the other thing is just like simple practical tips, not so much sacred, but I think just helpful, is this idea of, do you want to save it or spend it? Now, you've been talking a lot about semen retention. So obviously, there's formulas around this of like your age, whether or not you're in a build phase in your company. Like certainly for men, you want to be, intentional about how many times you're ejaculating. The math I understand for women is like the more you orgasm, the better. Like there's no like ill effects to that unless you're like gushing and there's like extraordinary amount of water lost like all day, every day. You might just need like an IV or something.
Don't forget the heart you had, ladies.
Wow. Just got to rehydrate. But I like this idea of, do you want to save it or spend it? Because I think oftentimes, especially for women who are not used to having a partner trained in semen retention, it can feel like they're failing. Like the woman doesn't feel like she's succeeded in pleasuring her man if he doesn't ejaculate. And same, like there might be, maybe a woman has orgasmed once, but her body doesn't want to orgasm a second time. And so just like asking your partner, like, do you want to save it or spend it? I think is a really beautiful frame versus making anyone feel like they've failed because they didn't cross some finish line or because they didn't make their partner cross some finish line. And I've had of couples really find like some reclamation in that. And I think, and so those are just practical tips, some practical takeaways. But I think to go into the sacredness of it, like if you have two people who know how to plug themselves into the divine and who go into the act of lovemaking with a level of reverence and intentionality and turn it into a ceremony, then you have the ability to truly create this third thing. And it's called the Ka body. So when you say like the Merkaba, like the Ka is from this Ka body. And this is how it's framed in the Egyptian lore anyway. And so you're tuning into this third thing. And that third thing is like you said, the original holy grail. It's like what happens inside of our brains, like as within, so, as within, so without, as above, so below. It's like the masculine and feminine or whatever poles you're in inside of your relationship can be an external mirror of what happens inside of our own brains. So there is something we have in our brains called the Hall of Brahman, or the marriage hall, where you have the pineal and the pituitary, and one looks like a yoni and one looks like a lingam. One is masculine, one is feminine. And in these heightened states of consciousness, they actually secrete or ejaculate the precursor to DMT, which is melatonin. Now, DMT is the God particle. So in no uncertain terms, when you say sacred sexuality, you are releasing, secreting, ejaculating God chemistry inside of your own brain. So you can do that with yourself, but if you do it together with a partner, like the amplification that is there. And if you're both holding your prayers, like if you're both manifesting the same thing and then creating that union and amplifying your prayers with your lovemaking, it really can be this exquisite, extraordinary ceremony.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that that sacred union as a ceremony and bringing back the sacredness that I know and feel has been lost and tainted and manipulated for thousands of years. That sacred sexuality is returning, and teachers like you that's bringing this to us. Could only imagine what the listeners and viewers are feeling right now, thinking, wow, making love to my husband, to my wife, to whoever, and I have missed the sacred aspect of it and the power of it. And wow, thank you, thank you, thank you.
And also, it doesn't have to be so complicated. Like, you could just light one candle and say, babe, like, what would you love? Okay, at the moment that we climax, let's just see that in our minds. You know what I mean? Like, it can be so simple. Like, at the moment of peak pleasure, just asking your partner, what would you love? What would you love? And from that state, just feeling it like it's already done. You know, if you throw away all the science and all the ancient Tantra and Kundalini, and just from that place of feeling like you already have everything you need, what would I love?
Thank you, thank you. Okay, before we wrap it up, I've got one last question, but I'd like if you could share with our listeners and viewers where they go to learn more about this work. Give us the websites, give us the socials, and also if someone wants to dive into these courses, maybe, you know, a couple has just listened to this and go, wow, or a lady or a man has listened to it and gone, you know what, this is something that I want to dive into with my husband or my wife or myself. Where do they go?
Yeah, so everything is at zivameditation.com. And Ziva is a Sanskrit word that means bliss. So it's Ziva meditation.com. And the magic course is just zivameditation.com/magic. Meditation, I'm sure you'll put all these links, but zivameditation.com/online.
Yep.
And I didn't talk too much about meditation, but it really is like a beautiful foundation for these practices to just regulate the nervous system. And then on Instagram, we're at Ziva Meditation. And we're really active on Instagram. And the podcast, I have a podcast called Why Isn't Everyone Doing This, which you're going to be a guest on very soon. And yeah, people want to start this training. It's a 10-week training. And it only takes about 2 hours a week, but it's a full initiation in these practices. And by the time you graduate, you have them to take with you for life. I'm big on that with all my teachings. With the meditation training, it's not an app. It's like you do a 15-day training and then you have the techniques to take with you for life. Same with Ziva Magic. Like, you move through 2 weeks of Visualize, 2 weeks of Alchemize, 2 weeks of Magnetize. And by the time you graduate, like, your body will be different. The way that you process grief will be different. The way that you metabolize rage will be different. Your relationship with your own pleasure, your capacity to hold pleasure will be enormous. And so that's the thing I'm most excited about right now. So it's just zivameditation.com/magic.
Okay, I think I have to jump in and get that done before we do the interview on your podcast, so I can talk a little bit about it, maybe even the success story.
I would love that. I would love that.
Sounds great. Last question for you. We're going to get you back for a sequel, and we're going to talk more. So listeners and viewers, if this has been useful, two things. As you know, go back, listen to it again, write down each step of the experience of the transmission as if you're
basically gave the formula. I basically taught you the Ziva Magic formula. So, you know, you could just start practicing it.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? Because sometimes we listen to a podcast and we go, wow, that was amazing, transformative. But then we listen to the next episode and do something else and we just don't do it, right? It's like we talk meditation all day, but what if we actually did it? That is the magic. So if this was useful, go back, listen to it again, maybe with a partner or a loved one, and write down the steps and actually sit through and go through the steps. Comment below if you want, you know, the questions that you want me to ask Emily when she comes back next time. And also feel free to, you know, do this. You never know how far sharing something with someone can go and how many people it can impact. So share this far and wide, put it on your socials, comment, you know, send it to someone, because that can just change someone's life. And maybe, ladies, gentlemen, you just happen to send this to your beloved. That could be a great idea too.
Also, like, I'm a bit of an attention whore. Like, I'm a Broadway baby. So if you want to like tag, like screenshot it and tag us, I'm at Ziva Meditation or Emily Fletcher. And if you want to share like what you learned, that would make my heart so, so happy.
Oh, great idea. So you guys got Ziva Meditation on Instagram and also Emily Fletcher on Instagram as well. So you can follow both those. Okay, last question for you straight off the cuff. Are you ready?
Ready.
Here we go. I want you now to imagine that you are on the world stage. Every sentient being alive has gathered, watching, tuning in, fully present. When you're ready, take a breath. And whenever you feel like it, share what is your message to the world right now.
Mm. The better you feel, the more magic you attract. So whatever it takes for you to sustainably and reliably feel good, which often means crawling through hell so that you can vibrate at the frequency of heaven, do that. Like, heaven is not a destination, heaven is a vibration, and you have the ability to create that right here, right now. And as you create that, you will attract more and more magic.
Woo! And so it is.
So it is.
This is Emily Fletcher, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in.